The title of this video is How to Heal Your Childhood Wounds. Everyone has childhood history that includes pain and disappointments. Many have trauma and abuse and shame. And nearly every person has memories of emotional pain, illnesses, criticism, and sadness. In order for a healing of any type to be completely successful, it is essential that the underlying causes are cleared from all levels. If you don't heal an issue through all the levels, you don't really fully heal it. Now, you might address some of the symptoms, but if the energetic patterns are not cleared, the pattern's going to find a way to come to the surface again, or it's going to remanifest itself in some way in the future. So for this reason, some people have been working on the same issues for 10 and 20, 30 years, and even more. And sometimes they seem to go on almost endlessly from one challenge to another. But it does not have to be this way. Over the decades, I've spent in excess of 50,000 hours doing healing and clearing sessions with people, and I've noticed some patterns. One of the patterns is that any issue that presents itself is not spontaneously going to spring up overnight. Every issue has been growing beneath the surface, maybe even beneath the surface of consciousness for years, in some cases, not only decades, but even lifetimes. And most adult issues have roots in childhood beliefs and conclusions and patterns and difficulties. So these were things that were set in motion, usually unwittingly, from a distorted childhood perception and from ways that a person was treated when we were young. You see, a child will often conclude that the reasons and causes of conditions and treatments are somehow the child's fault. And of course, this doesn't make logical sense to an adult. But the pattern becomes set in place, and then it affects the person for the rest of their life. And in addition, there are also patterns that are transferred from their parents and even other ancestors going way back. Some of them are genetic, yes. Some are also energetic, and some are learned. The core patterning is programmed in the first year from the mental and emotional energies of the mother and father. Then during the next 7 years after birth, the chakras are developing. And there are at least 4 categories of programming that you have. First of all, most core development level programs affect generation, genetically and energetically. Now, if you're descended, let's say, from a nationality that has aggressive tendencies and victimization and oppression, then you're going to have to deal with those energies as you go through life. This is deep core conditioning that is affecting a child. Secondly, in addition, you have the soul and the qualities and destiny of the soul. The qualities of the soul merge with the DNA qualities. Then you have the third form of patterns that get handed down. And these are qualities that are brought along from the karma that you've set in motion in past lives. And those are seated in what's called your causal body and also in your chakras. It's called the causal body because the cause of things that happen come from the energy stored in the causal body, most notably karmic patterns and set in motion. And I've addressed karma in other videos. It doesn't matter whether you believe in karma or not. Whatever energy you set in motion is going to have an effect on you until you clear it. That's what I'm calling karma. So there can be very strongly embedded patterns at the very core, usually unconscious belief level, and it just doesn't vanish because you don't like the symptoms or the consequences, or you don't believe in karma. Karmic patterns usually must be specifically addressed in order to be cleared. And then finally, the fourth area is you have the conditioning from the environment that you've been raised in. So the mental, emotional, and spiritual state of the mother is a very strong influence on the development of the child. The father, of course, definitely also affects the development, but the main influence is the mother. When an emotional event happens to a child, it leaves an imprint of the energies of the event. It affects the development of the brain patterns, the nervous system, the organs, and the other tissues. And then later in life, when something happens to trigger the stored energy, which is actually kind of like a hologram, or sometimes it's called a thought form, the memories replay with the emotions. The hologram movie plays out what it has stored, and that has all the emotions. Often there's pictures or even movies. There's the conclusions, the reactions, and the beliefs about whatever it was that happened. And these patterns collectively make up what is called your inner child. Your inner child is composed of what impressed you from childhood. Your inner child is composed of sub-personalities, and they can emerge and take over a person when they're triggered. So this is what causes an adult to react to a situation from the perspective of a child with the same fears and insecurities, anger, or depression or futility or whatever it was that triggered the child. In most cases, there were strong patterns developed in childhood which later impact the person as they relate to people in all kinds of relationships. So in other words, whatever can come on your job. And these patterns are then handed down from generation to generation, either through verbal explanation or through energetic transference, that is subtle energy transference, or even energetic patterns, sometimes embedded and entwined in the very DNA. Now, you can very quickly realize that if you're dealing with adult situations from the perspective of a wounded childhood, that can lead to some pretty difficult and curious outcomes as an adult. And so this is undoubtedly a major factor in relationships and why they often don't last. Now, I've just listed four main factors that make up the conditioning of the child. And these four factors all present throughout pregnancy and after. Now, keep in mind, while we're inside of our mother's womb, that place where the developing child is right where the second chakra is. And the second chakra is below the navel, and that's where a lot of the strongest emotions are processed. So whatever your mother was experiencing emotionally is going to make an imprint on the child as the child's developing. They can affect your brain, your body, and your chakra system. The four factors that create the program that the child operates from are the DNA patterns, the soul, karma, and environment. The personality patterns of the inner child are held in memories in the second chakra. So that chakra is sometimes also referred to as the home of the inner child. And when we talk about the inner child being at home in the second chakra, we're talking about how the child views life, how the child reacts to situations is influenced by the child's environment with the adults, who are either unconditionally loving, kind, patient, and understanding, or controlling, rigid, fearful, or angry. And these factors can cause a child to have a positive self-image and outlook or feel oppressed, depressed, and unhappy. So the question to ask yourself is, did your childhood environment have fear images that cause you to feel vulnerable and not very happy? If so, perhaps this is what led you to be protective, to build walls around yourself, to hide, to be shy, insecure, antisocial, or perhaps even to strike out in anger at people. On the other hand, maybe your environment was nurturing and unconditionally loving, so you felt warmly accepted, cared for, and safe. But more likely, your home had a combination of qualities, which likely led to some confusion and uncertainty. Now, what is the relationship of a child to its home? I'm referring to the inner, emotional, psychological environment established from your early years and development. So if the child isn't safe in its home, then the adult's not going to feel safe in life. The child will likely be uncomfortable or even suspicious with people, maybe even paranoid about people. So the child will pick up a whole collection of compensations and protections to try to deal with this. For instance, maybe the child will go into his or her mind and become very intellectual so the child can feel good about his or her mind. Maybe he or she will become athletic to help keep threats away. Maybe the child will be shy and introverted to avoid social situations. Each child's different and will have different ways of dealing with these things. The key here is to bring safety and nurturing to that child by giving the child a safe haven and a safe relationship at its home base. And so what we want to do is get in touch with the house the child lives in, examine the state of the child in relationship to the home, and bring the child to a place of safety, love, expansion, freedom, spontaneity, empowerment, ultimately spirituality, to a place where it can love life and feel safe and supported. Obviously, the relationship with the mother strongly defines this house. Therefore, many second chakra issues relate to the mother. And of course, the influence of the father is relevant. But here are some of the common issues that an inner child will carry: feeling of being abandoned or shameful, feeling alone and isolated, feeling different from others, feelings of being betrayed or fear of betrayal, feeling burdened or overburdened, putting too much on the child, feeling and beliefs that I'm not good enough, no matter what I do, beliefs that life is unfair, a sense of being stuck and even trapped, feelings that there's something wrong with me, feeling I am unlovable. Now, there's a lot more than that, but you get the idea. This is a lot for a child to deal with, and yet all children do. Now, I'm going to tell you of two very dramatic examples of how childhood impressions affected two people when they became adults. These are both examples of issues that arose during my doing a private session with them. The first example is a man in his 50s who is having financial difficulties. Sometimes he'd do well, and then he'd lose it. So he asked me to see if I could help him determine why this kept happening. As I tuned into him with my clairvoyant perception, I noticed something unusual in the area of his spleen. I saw the appearance of three men. Now, these were in the form of pictures in his aura, and I had no idea why they appeared. So I described them to him, as being dressed in the kind of suits that men wore back in the 1930s. And I thought that in itself was very unusual. So I said, look, I don't know why I'm seeing these three men, and I have no idea who they are. Without any hesitation, he said, I know who they are. One is my father, another my grandfather, and the third one is my uncle. And they all went bankrupt during the Depression in the 1930s. So I then proceeded to remove those patterns where they were like energy recordings in his aura. And he immediately said, oh, the voices stopped. And I said, what voices? And he told me that since he was a young child, he had voices in his head telling him he would lose all his money. And that is what kept happening to him. He had absorbed the fear of losing money from his family members who experienced losing their money. And it had become like a subconscious program that was running his life. Once these were cleared, not only did the voices stop, but his finances turned positive. So that's an interesting example, isn't it, of how you can absorb the energy of the environment or the people that you're around when you're a little child. And it all happened unconsciously. And I'm sure that those relatives were certainly not intending to impart that to this child. And yet that's what happened. Now, another example that stands out in my mind was an elderly man in his 80s who said that he had to get up 5 or 6 times at night to go to the bathroom. And he asked if I could do anything to help him. And I said, well, I'll see if I can. I figured he probably just had an enlarged prostate, which many men have as they get up in years. But when I tuned into him with my clairvoyant vision, I saw the image of an adult man dressed in a black suit, wearing a black rimmed hat. And this struck me as quite odd. And I had no idea what that was all about. So I just said to this man, I don't know why I'm seeing this guy, and I have no idea who he is or why he's there. And the elderly man said to me, well, I know exactly who that is. That's my father. You see, I grew up in a Mennonite community, and the men all dressed like that. They all wore black suits with black rimmed hats. The Mennonites, if you don't know, have some similar characteristics with the Amish in the way that they dressed and in their lifestyle. They also have very strict beliefs about morality and sexuality. And these patterns were strongly impressed on this elderly man from even before he was born and had become embedded in the first chakra, which is at the base of the spine. And that is the chakra that has an influence on sexual behavior in the sexual organs. So I did my energy work to clear this from his first chakra and from his aura. And then a few weeks later, when I was talking to him again, he said to me, I'm only having to get up once at night. So this unusual example impressed me for two reasons. First, I was taken off guard by the visual image of his father's appearance in the first chakra. But secondly, and even more astounding, is the fact that this man had become an authority on Buddhism as an adult. He had even written books on it, and he was a very well-respected Buddhist. So he had long ago left the religion he was born into, had migrated about as far in his spiritual orientation as you could, and yet the pattern impressed from childhood was still affecting him decades later. You see, the energies that we acquire as children do not disappear because time passes. Subtle energy patterns can often stay with you for your entire life, and they affect how you think, how you believe, how you react, and you assume it's just part of you or the way you are. never suspecting that you are living your life from programming you received when you were a child. So now we'll go into the meditative portion of this presentation. So you're going to explore the environment you had as a child and bring healing to yourself. So arrange yourself now to meditate as we go along into your inner child's journey. You don't want to be doing this while you're driving or doing any other activity. This is a guided meditation portion of this video. So position yourself comfortably. Take a deep breath slowly in through your nose. Hold it just for an instant, and then exhale slowly out your mouth and allow yourself to relax with each and every breath. Now become aware of your grounding connection as a column of energy from your first chakra at the base of your spine goes down to the center of the earth, connecting and merging you with the purifying, nurturing energy of the earth, bringing a peaceful calmness, radiating a complete relaxation all the way through you. And now, using your imagination, imagine you're walking down a country road near a stream. There are trees along the road. The sun is high overhead, and the air is warm and comfortable, and you are enjoying the fresh air. You are thinking only about this day as you leave the past behind. And a little way on the path ahead, you see someone waiting for you, and it appears to be a very young child. And as you draw closer, you realize it is you, yourself, when you were a young child. It is the remembrance of who you were and how you experienced life when you were very young. And you want to know how your inner child can be of help to you in opening a deeper understanding of your life now. The inner child embodies what you thought and felt as a young child, and you still carry this child with you. And as you walk closer and closer to each other, ask your child what that child wants to tell you. What message is important for you to understand? Are there childhood perceptions and memories that your inner child wants you to know? Some of them may be sad. Some may be joyful. Perhaps your child is excited about who you are today and what you are doing. Perhaps there are certain fears or concerns. Perhaps the child is afraid of something in life. Allow yourself to hear the message and feel the needs of your own inner child while I am silent for a little while. What was it that you wanted as a child that you did not get? Maybe your child wanted and needed love and understanding and acceptance from the adult you. Maybe it was safety and protection, and you certainly wanted more unconditional love than you received. So, whatever it is, see if you can find a way to give that to your child now and say the words that need to be said and give that to your child. And ask your higher self, what else can I give my inner child that it needs? Listen with your feeling. Let it all into your heart and consciousness. Trust your first feelings about this and trust your intuition. Give your child whatever the answer is. Also, surround your inner child with pink light, representing beautiful, unconditional love. You could see it like a bubble of pink light, or maybe like a cloud of pink light around that young child. And while you're doing that, tell your child you love him or her and accept the returning embrace and hug of your child. And now relax and let go even deeper now and allow your inner child to receive all it needs in the deepest, most loving way you can. This is what this part of you has been waiting for you. Allow your inner child to be nourished by your heart and soul. Allow your inner child to be loved, supported, and fully embraced by your soul. And now say these words softly to yourself. My precious innocent child, I hold you in the healing light of deep love. I give you permission to receive the fullness of deep love now. I allow my beloved inner child to receive the gifts of healing and peace. that comes from being fully accepted and embraced with deep love. Let the inner child be heard. Let it express whatever it needs to let you know, and allow yourself to be with that now, relaxing into acceptance, love, forgiveness, and just listening. My beloved child, I bring you all the acknowledgement and acceptance that you are a beautiful, worthy creation of God in love. My beloved child, I bring you all the acknowledgement and acceptance that you are a beautiful, worthy creation of God in love. I allow myself to receive love, healing, and restoration. And now just listen. Embrace the inner child with a hug. Draw the child close to your body so that you can hear and feel its heartbeat. Ask your inner child what else it needs most from you in order to come into balance and harmony and maturity. Maybe it wants forgiveness. Maybe it just wants to be acknowledged. Maybe it wants to be reassured, to be made to feel safe. This is a gift you give to yourself. It's a way you reparent your little child. And so accept that gift, bring it into yourself, accept the gift and project it back to that child. And then watch what happens to the child. Maybe the child becomes very happy. Maybe the child even dances. Just observe how the child responds and follow these thoughts. I allow myself to receive love, healing, and restoration. Notice how it just feels to take in whatever you are feeling right now. Experience it, realize it, and then bring all of those feelings and realizations with you as you gradually bring yourself peacefully back to your normal awareness. Reconnect with your surroundings, reconnect with here and now. Move your fingers and toes and begin stretching your body. Take a deep breath in and out and move your legs and your arms a little bit. Just take your time as you return to full awareness and your normal alert self in present time, right here, right now. And then open your eyes and see beauty and goodness all around. Come all the way back to full alertness, full alert objectivity in the present moment. And I send you love and light, and may you be blessed with happiness and goodness always.